Hi, everybody. Dr. Lena Rodriguez coming to you from Australia. Now, Candace Owens, apparently she was calling for America to invade Australia and liberate us. Candace, honey, I don't know where to start. Australia is a country, right? It's a whole country. Thousands of miles, lots of states and cities, and one city was in lockdown. My city, so I know all about lockdown, and we did that because we didn't want people to die of COVID. Okay, so it's like Portland locking down and something, and some Chinese TikTok star saying we better invade America. Oh, love, this is what happens when you get your news from the same place you buy your handbags. You know, where does it end? Ignorance is a choice. Okay. Now, into other news. I saw yesterday that the FBI have raided the home of Oleg Deripaska. And I thought, I know that name. Where do I know that name? And I went back through my old playlist. And those of you intrepid viewers who have been with me from the beginning will remember during some of those complicated connections between Russian oligarchs and your elected leaders, I did diagrams. And sure enough, 2018, I found this little jewel, and I've just rewritten it here for you. Hope it's not backwards. So Deripaska, along with other oligarchs, used to donate, I'll come back to this in a second, used to donate small amounts, $20,000, $30,000 to both Dems and GOP. That's what they used to do, just keep an oar in there. And then it started to all change during the Yeti years, and they started only targeting GOP people and big sums of money. And so then 2018, I was describing how this money was funneled to McConnell, Rubio, and Queen of Swords, Lindsey Graham. There it is, Moscow Mitch, remember? Lest we forget. So I want to know if this is going to translate into anything for McConnell, Rubio, and Graham. Of course, there are others. Remember all those who went on Independence Day to Moscow? I mean, the world is so weird. Who would have dreamt that that would go unremarked? There was so much happening. Not unremarked, people did comment on it, but So Oleg Deripaska, who's known around the world as Mr. Aluminium, so I would suggest he has his fingers in various aluminium pies. Will this expose McConnell, Rubio, or Graham? Oh, I should move to the Russian cards. Let's start that shuffle again, shall we? So, will McConnell, Rubio, Graham be caught up in this Deripaska business? Deripaska, McConnell, Rubio, Graham. Oh. Here we go. Okie dokie. Now, for those of you who haven't seen these cards before, and you often get in touch with me, this is the 12 Chairs Tarot. So if you go on Facebook, there's a Russian guy who does these, and they come in this fabby little box. Okay, so back to our reading here. In the middle, guys talking, and I like the fact there's three of them. So 3, it might involve all 3 of them. So here they are, plotting and planning. Please put this money in this account. Thank you, Mr. Deripaska. And now, of course, effectively, he owns them. Okay, so bang in the middle, there it is. Past attitudes. The past attitudes were, if you like, this is the 10 of cups. We can all win, right? That's the message. I pay you money, you do me favors. What's wrong with that? Love it, right? Everyone can be a winner was the philosophy there. Past actions, this is making it happen. Okay, you see there? This is the talking, how do we do it without getting caught, right? This is guys in a back room working out literally back room deals, probably with a bit of help from Giuliani and certainly from Lev Parnas and Oleg, whoever the other guy was, I forget his name. This is them, this is why they were such important players and why the conviction for Lev Parnas is important. This pattern, which is hard to watch, they've gone for the lowest of the lowest. They've done Lev Parnas for, I think it's 113,000 or some comparatively little amount of money because they want to put the pressure upwards. But nonetheless, this was the wheeling and dealing. The energy over the issue. Does he look like Giuliani or does he look like Giuliani? I think this is going to impact Giuliani. That's my vibe from this, even though I was looking at McConnell, Rubio and Graham. Giuliani's in this. The waiter is overhearing the conversations. This, to me, this figure always looks like an escort who isn't paid enough to put up with this behavior, right? She's not interested. But these are the Russian deck. So is she also a honeypot? I'm looking at this card because it's the main card, energy over the issue. This is people who heard and observed what went on, and we don't know their names yet. They're coming up. So the current thinking. The current thinking is, how do we cover this up? Oh my God, can we get out of this? They're on a boat, they're not happy, right? Suddenly things they thought were in the past aren't in the past and they're in trouble. This is me thinking this card is the whistleblower, it's investigative journalism. So in answer to the question, I think it is going to come back and bite these guys on the bum. I do. I hope. I will even put that on my prayer list. Wouldn't that be bliss? Oh, okay. Now, before I move on, because I want to talk about a bit was what I was talking about in the last video about trickle-down economics and all of that. So I hope your eyes don't glaze over because it really affects you and me. So I want to talk about that. But first, on a more serious note, Alec Baldwin, the gun that was not a fake gun or was a fake gun that had real bullets, or how did that happen? Now, it happened because, even before we get into a full-blown inquiry, it happened because the film shoot as a whole was rushing, taking shortcuts, and 3 technicians resigned just prior to this accidental shooting. That's how bad it was, right? People put up with a tremendous amount on film shoots because you don't say no to jobs or you can't work in the industry. And as we know, right at this moment, a lot of technical workers in the film industry are saying we're exhausted, we're burnt out, we get big money and no money, but we're worked to death with the way these schedules are made up. And that's becoming so bad that there's talking about a strike in Hollywood, right? So this is a very timely incident to back up that overall story of the industry. So it was so bad, 3 resigned prior to this. That doesn't help Alex Baldwin because he's got to live with that every day of his life. So how appalling. So what I'm looking at here is, will industrial action improve conditions in the industry? It's like a lot of industry, the tourism industry and the Hollywood industry and all of that, that it seems so glamorous. And you have this fantasy from the age of 14 or 16 or 18, you want to work in this industry, and then you do, and then you realise the other side of it. So my question is, will this lead to improvements in the industry? I'll just do a 4-carder. Will this lead to improvements in the industry? Oh, my cards are upside down. I think what's happening, there's movement towards understanding that this is quite exploitative, and the movement's gathering pace with the chariot. I think the industry, the big players, the executive producers and so forth, the money people, here we go again, at the top, will try and get a sweetheart deal because you've got the lovers and the wedding card. So it's like they really want to do a deal quickly to try and put this to bed. So, oh, yes, yeah, things weren't very good. We'll make it better. Can you go back to work now? That sort of quick deal of promising things without actually, or look at it this way, promising things with their fingers crossed behind their back, not actually intending to deliver. And that's going to force a situation where I think some of the worst cases, and that includes this case that was entirely preventable, should not have happened. Where are the checks and balances? They weren't there. The Hierophant's going to step in. So I think there will be court cases emanating from this case that will impact the industry. And not a minute too soon. Now, intrepid viewers, as I started to say last week, I don't see why you and I should be paying more tax than Google, you know, and so it's scandalous. But where did it all start? As a sociologist, of course, I could rave for 2 days on it started with the feudal economy of exploiting workers, but let's bring it a bit more up to date. So I was talking about, personally, my take is that the Civil War began under Reagan, not now, under Reagan. Now, lest we forget, and a lot of you commented, and thank you for that. I got a lot of positive feedback from that position. That could be because the people who don't agree with it watch other channels. I don't know. But thank you for all your comments. But Reagan didn't invent Reaganism. And Margaret Thatcher in the UK didn't invent Thatcherism. Right? They were both very good vehicles for what was loosely called neoliberalism. Let the market rule. And the idea was pull back government, privatise everything, education, privatise jails, privatise hospitals. You already had a wretched and demonic fake health system, so they didn't have to do much to destroy that. But for the UK, who had a very good health system, the envy of the free world, got starved of funds. And the whole idea was that CEOs were suddenly revered. They were employment creators and send all these messy industries offshore, and big capitalists can make huge profits, and the consumer would benefit because when you let companies compete, it always drives the price down. Yep, except it doesn't, and it hasn't. So we pay more for energy than we did, despite all this stuff being privatized. And it's not called trickle-down economics for nothing. So since the 30s, really, and certainly since the Second World War, things were getting better for workers. And now, since the Reagan era and the Thatcher era, for the first time, children of baby boomers are looking at a less secure future and basically a life of financial struggle, doing less well than their parents. So what was improving each generation is now falling off a cliff. And that's before you get into other issues like homelessness and other really, really major issues that we're not looking at. So what I want to look at now is, I've got some figures for you. I digress, viewers. Just a few little figures. Stay with me here. Last year, Amazon earned $280 billion in profit. Now, I'm not a maths fiend, but that's more than $250 billion in 1 year in profits. But they were given a $650 million tax break last year. $650 million. This is the issue, isn't it? So, and just last figure, they've received $4.1 billion in subsidies since 2000. This is corporate welfare. And so my question today is, will average working people, and Australia's the same, the UK, Canada, everyone's been lurching to the right with this whole idea of you privatise everything and successful businesses make a country strong, and if they can't compete, they fall over, and who cares? When in fact, the biggest companies are subsidised all the time for large amounts of money. So my question is, will people wake up to, I guess the crude way of putting it is, who is shafting them really? And it's not the Mexican workers coming over the border. I'll give you a hint. It's not the Mexicans. So will people wake up to this? Will they demand a different way of doing it? All of the infrastructure could be paid for by just winding back those tax breaks for the rich. And as I've said before, I don't want them to pay more tax than anyone else. I want them to pay the tax they owe. So will this position gain traction? It's not just me. It's not just AOC. It's actually just basic stuff. But will people see it, and will people lobby for change? For a more equal world? Will people start to wake up to this? Will it become a thing with momentum? Will it get momentum? Sometimes I'm scared to ask these questions. Oh, well, I'm quite happy with these. I'm quite happy with these because they do tell the story. Okay. 10 of Wands. This is what's happening now. The middle class and the working class, and don't forget, I digress. I'm only on card 1 and I digress. Who is working class and who is middle class? since the 80s too, and the world got divided into winners and losers, working class people tended to identify as middle class. It was seen as a bit passé, and people didn't want to be identified as working class. Well, my definition of working class is if you are impacted severely, if you didn't earn an income at your job for 6 weeks, you didn't have enough in savings that you would be severely impacted in 6 weeks, you're working class. That includes me, and probably includes a lot of you. Okay, so I'm going to say the working class and the middle class have been carrying the burden, while those who were wealthy, and there's always been some divide, it's gone off into the stratosphere. So we are carrying the burden for neoliberalism, for trickle-down economics. Yes, I might be Bernie Sanders' love child, but we were all talking this before Bernie came on the picture. Here we go. Okay, so this is who's carrying the burden. To a certain extent, people bought into the deal. They wanted the $5 t-shirts and didn't want to look at how they were produced in other countries, and steel, mining, manufacturing got shunted offshore, and people bought the deal. Okay? Because I remember in the 90s too, people were told, all your kids can go to college. They don't have to work in factories anymore. Remember that? The dot-com revolution. And everyone thought their child was going to be a webmaster and it was all going to be fine. Well, no, because you ended up with 200 million people without work with those skills. But people bought the line, is the point I'm making here. This is still in the past. They wanted to believe this was the brand new day, that if we let business rule, they'd do the right thing. They'd make things cheaper. They'd be all right. You know, business people know how to manage money. And this is the biggest myth of all time. They know how to manage your money. Okay, I'll just point that out. So there was a naivety, and I'm including all of us as Australians, as everybody, we bought this line. If you let business have a free rein, everyone's better off. Awesome. Then the reality started to kick in. This is the Knight of Pentacles. So this was everyone knuckling down. In Australia, the UK, and many places, we had good white-collar working conditions. America's never had working conditions that were that good compared with Scandinavia or Europe or anywhere else. But we did. We had 6 weeks paid annual leave and jobs for life and all of that stuff. And people worked very hard. And now people are working longer and longer and longer and treading water. Right. But here come the young ones. And by the young ones here, I'm even talking pre-voting. I think by the time the 16-year-olds now come of age to vote in 2024, they're going to see that. They're going to go, well, if things don't change, I'm going to be living in my parents' basement till I'm 45. I can't afford anything. I think they're going to raise up in arms. When these figures, these simple figures like I was just giving you before, they tell the story. We're always told, oh, there's not enough money to do things with climate change. There's not enough money to put more money into hospitals or education. Sorry, not enough money. Well, there is enough money. It's just that it's parked up in Panama and Cyprus and the Seychelles. You know, that's where the money is. That should be your money. And I'm hopeful that the youth will raise the sword about this. I don't think we can convert people who are middle-aged and older now. They can see the writing on the wall but think, oh, well, that's just how life is. I think globally, the youth is going to go, no, we've been lied to. You've had 40 years to prove this and it's failed and everything's gone backwards. This is the thing. Australia has an extremely high rate of home ownership, you know, the dream, the picket fence and the dream. And so, like a lot of places, renting was seen as something you did when you were a student or when you were young, and then you grew up and you got married and you got your own house. That was the trajectory. It wasn't like that in Europe. You could rent for life and there was no shame. It's not even like that in New York. It's perfectly normal for New Yorkers to rent for life. But for most of the USA, most Australians, and now the most basic house in the world is out of reach. I mean, we needed 3 of us to buy this house, and I'm very happy we did, but it took 3, not 2, not 1, 3. So let me just check here. I'm going to be doing a collab with Johnny from Taro's Apprentice and whoever else he has on tomorrow. So check Johnny's channel for what time that's likely to be, usually around 7 or 8 Eastern Standard Time, but have a look. And with the live stream, it's fun having you on board. Now, thanks to everyone for your comments. They've been totally brilliant and they totally inspire me. So guys, you look after yourselves and I'll be back to you in a flash. Ciao, ciao. Bye for now.